Good afternoon. Since 1996, I've been researching and writing about race, class, and tax policy, and I cannot tell you how thrilling it is for me to have actually a room full of people who are interested in what I have to say. As opposed to my students who are conscripted, they have to be in the classroom. So I want to make 3 points. First, our so-called progressive tax system doesn't apply to the richest Americans because the tax treatment of wages is harsher than the tax treatment of income from stock, what we call capital gains. The richest taxpayers pay tax rates comparable to middle-class taxpayers, and whatever your definition of a progressive tax rate system is, that ain't it. Second, just like the lotto expression, you gotta be in it to win it, only if you own stock in a right way will you be eligible for this favorable treatment. It's well known that very few people of color own stock. Third, my solution is to tax income from stock in the same way as income from wages, and it will only happen if we get a grassroots movement to force Congress to fix this. My catalyst for tax reform is an idea I have called the 535 report. So first, our so-called progressive tax system. In a real progressive tax system, as your income rises, so would your tax rate. However, our highest tax rate is 39.6%, what's been called roughly 40%. Income from wages is taxed in that structure. Income from stock, however, has a flat tax of 20% that applies to it, then something else if there's net investment income. But I just want to talk about the difference between wages taxed at up to 39.6% and income from stock that's taxed maximum 20%. So let me ask you, if you had a choice between paying taxes at 39.6% or 20%, which rate would you pick? Okay, 20%. But here's the problem. You don't get to pick. According to the Tax Policy Center, almost 3/4 of all capital gains went to the top 1% of households. Now, if everyone had an equal shot at this lottery, it might be fair, but we don't. Who owns stock is another case of the deck being stacked so that the rich get richer. Fewer than 1 in 10 families of color own stock in the right way, and fewer than 2 in 10 white families own stock in the right way. There's only a small group of taxpayers who are winning, and they happen to be the richest Americans. In 1997, about half of all capital gains were received by individual investors, and only 1/3 were received by hedge funds. Fast forward 10 years, and the statistics are flipped. 45% of capital gains are received by hedge funds, and only 1/3 are received by individuals. Pretty soon, individuals are going to be crowded out of this market that is becoming increasingly dominated by hedge funds. And let's be clear, hedge funds are an invitation-only business. You don't get to walk up to the counter and say, here's my $1 million, you have to take it. No, 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 no. You only get invited to be part of hedge funds. Third, the solution seems obvious. Tax income the same way as income from stock, the same way as income from wages. And anyone that says that's just crazy talk, the hero of this story is Ronald Reagan. Yes, I said it. The hero of this story is Ronald Reagan and the Tax Reform Act of 1986, because this was one of his brainchildren. And that was the last time we had income from stock taxed at the same rate as income from wages. So this isn't some vast left-wing conspiracy idea. Ronald Reagan and the Congress of the Tax Reform Act of '86 thought it was a great idea. We also see it in Simpson-Bowles as one of the ideas. So this notion of fairness, where all income is treated alike, We've seen it before, and we should be able to see it again. So I want to end with my proposal for what I'm calling a 535 report. The goal is to get the blood boiling of the average American, and to be clear, to shame Congress into doing the right thing. So what is the 535 report? The 535 report, so first of all, 535, what's that number? We're in a building that is associated with the number of 535, 100 and 435. Ding, 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 ding. I want a report that the IRS would issue that would summarize all the tax returns of members of Congress. Now, believe it or not, no law would need to be passed for this to happen. All the IRS would have to do is do it. And there's actually an analog with the Top 400 report. So every year since the mid-90s, the IRS has issued a report of the top 400 highest income Americans. And it tells us things like, their tax rates are lower than yours and mine because they get income from stock. What the 535 report would do, at least in my view, is show how not is it that Congress is shilling for paid lobbyists, Congress is shilling for Congress. If we look at their tax returns and we compare them to ours, we're gonna know why this train has jumped the tracks. And I believe once that information would become public, we would have a groundswell of reform, and members of Congress who vote on tax laws would be shown that these tax laws benefit members of Congress and not us. So I want to close by saying the National Journal wrote a piece, One Good Idea, on my 535 report. I've got a website up at the Emory Law School. You can contact me. I'm happy to send you any papers that I've written. But I want to end echoing what you heard earlier. I believe once the American public finds out that Congress members are not just acting on behalf of lobbyists, but on their own behalves, we'll have some reform. I predict sooner rather than later. Thank you.